Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Unwrapped series. Today, we're talking to Janice and Joey from TROSA. TROSA is in Durham. They're a residential treatment facility for substance use disorders and mental health support. They have incredible successes, and they also offer the facilities and the treatment 100% free of charge for the folks who attend and benefit from it. You guys might be familiar with TROSA, so we're here today to talk to them about TROSA's successes, what their mission is, what makes their approach so successful, what people might not know about substance use disorders, about addiction, about mental health. Joey is here to share his experience and his story as a graduate of the program. So Janice, Joey, can you introduce yourselves, say hi?
Hi there. Again, my name is Janice Kalin, and I've been at TROSA for only about 6 months. However, I've been involved with TROSA for many years. I was a volunteer and on the board of directors for many years. So I was just absolutely thrilled that I was able to join TROSA as a staff member. I have been working in the Triangle for many years in a lot of housing, conservation, and education nonprofits. And this is Joey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joey Kingston, and I'm a 2020 graduate of the TROSA program. And I appreciate y'all having us today.
Congratulations, Joey, and thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to meet you.
Absolutely.
So for everybody who's joined us or everybody who's going to join us, we'll have a short Q&A session at the end. So if you guys do have questions about TROSA, or if you have questions for Joey about his experience or who he is or where he likes to eat, please don't hesitate to drop. We're just going to ask you all the questions. Don't hesitate to drop your questions in the chat function as we go. If you're like me and you have a memory of a goldfish, sometimes it helps to just get it down. So once we get to the end, I'll be checking that, and we'll get through as many questions as we can. So let's just jump right in. Janice, can you tell me a little bit more about TROSA's mission and what makes you guys so successful?
Absolutely. So TROSA is a very innovative program. It's a multi-year residential program here in Durham. It empowers people with substance use disorders to be productive, recovering individuals by providing comprehensive treatment, vocational training, education, and continuing care. So what that really means is that it's a 2-year program that focuses on the whole person. So we make sure that you are working, you are learning, you are getting every single type of medical treatment that you need, every sort of therapy, and all of your dental work as well, taken care of here at TROSA, so that when you graduate after 2 years, you can step back out into the community and you can make sure that you are a wonderful contributing member. So we've been here for more than 25 years as part of the community, and more than 8,000 men and women have walked through our doors and received treatment for their support of their substance use disorders. So we do a lot of different things, because actually right now substance use disorder is a national public health crisis. So we provide very many different supports to help our program participants rebuild their lives. So as you mentioned right at the very start, Devin, thank you. This program is 100% no cost to all of the individuals who participate, which is a very rare model, mainly because of the fact that you know that most 30-day programs are quite expensive. So cost is definitely not a factor when people sign up and come. So it's multi-year. People come here, they move in, we provide all of their housing, all of their food, all of their clothing, all of their therapy, all of everything that you can possibly need, from the shoelaces to the roof over your head for those 2 years. And we keep it cost-free. So we are able to keep it cost-free, mainly because of the fact that, as I was mentioning at the beginning, it is a vocational training. So we have social enterprises that I'm sure that you have seen running around the Triangle. So we have our moving company, our big trucks are always out and about, our thrift store, and our lawn care companies. So with all of these different social enterprises, our wonderful residents are able to participate in the program and be able to participate and learn hard skills and soft skills through these different vocational services. So throughout this, they learn to be able to move, they learn customer service skills, they learn all of the different things that they are going to be able to use when they graduate so that they can go in and get a job. So one thing that we're very, very proud of is 100% of our residents who graduate this program, 100% of them graduate with a job and graduate with employment above a living wage. So my favorite group is our in-kind department. And a lot of our residents work inside with our in-kind department, or they work in our finance department, our development program. So again, they learn all of these different skills to be able to take forward.
You know, for anybody who hasn't visited TROSA's facility, isn't the right word, TROSA's community.
Campus, yes, or a community. Yes, we have 500 residents who live here on campus.
It's really quite beautiful. The buildings, the brick, outside of pandemic times, we have not visited during the pandemic for obvious reasons. But you've got people eating together, hanging out together, working together, learning from each other, and it really feels like going to a small town even. And for those of you who don't follow TROSA's Instagram, TROSA's Thrift Store's Instagram in particular, I highly recommend you do, not just for sneak peeks at some of the great products, furniture, or clothes that they get in store, but whoever runs it is funny and it's worth a follow.
So that's one of our wonderful residents. So yes, all of the proceeds that we raise from our moving companies and our thrift stores go towards making this program affordable. And thank you for noticing how beautiful our campus is. Most of our buildings here have been built by our construction teams. So these are our residents who work in our construction vocational service training, and so that they can go and learn and go get construction jobs as they leave. And you're right, our kitchen is here, and it's staffed by over 70 of our residents. So they learn how to cook, to manage, to order, and deal with more than 1,500 single meals every single day. And so they all become certified and serve safe and go off and work in some of the best restaurants in the Triangle.
Yeah, all of that is certainly no easy feat, and everything you've mentioned in terms of skills are skills that I do not have. So
Me either. That's why I work in development.
That's why I work in communications. It's the only thing I can do.
That's right.
So I'm always impressed, by folks who do have the capacity to handle the projects of that size. It's pretty incredible.
Right. As well as when they're working in all of these different vocational situations, they are not only learning these hard skills for each of these different jobs, but they're learning the soft skills to be able to deal with each other. And there's always a crew boss who is always monitoring and making sure that everybody's doing well. And we all know that a lot of our trigger points happen at work or happen day to day on little wee things. And so our crew bosses are able to recognize where each and everybody's different little trigger points are and help each of the different residents work on those trigger points, so that when they do go back out, they have a better understanding of where their trigger points are. And I often say that I need to be a TROSA resident so that I can start to understand my own trigger points. But yes.
Yeah, the mental health aspect and having somebody to guide you along the way, we like to say, because this is true, mental health is health. And so paying attention to that aspect and learning, those trigger points and learning how to support yourself in the long run is valuable for any person, whether you're a child or an adult. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. So we'll talk a little bit about how COVID-19 has affected TROSA in a second. Before we get there though, Joey, you are a recent graduate, like we said at the beginning, in August. You're now working in the in-kind department. You've got this beautiful photo in front of a flowering tree.
That our lawn care company takes care of.
Beautiful. I can't even keep my hydrangea plants alive, so kudos to you guys. Joey, I'd love to hear about you. that you could be whatever your story is, your experience, who you are, what you love, your favorite animal. You know, can you tell us a little bit more about you and your story?
Well, absolutely. I'm really grateful to be here today. Thank you for having us, and I appreciate Janice asking me to be a part of this. My name's Joey, and I'm 37 years old. I grew up in a really small town called Eden, North Carolina. It's a little small cotton mill town, and very narrow-minded. When I graduated high school, I closed my eyes and I picked the college furthest away from Eden on the map, and that was UNC Wilmington, and that's where I went. I went to school to be a school teacher. So I have a background in education. I graduated from UNCW and taught middle school, 7th grade social studies and science in New Hanover County right out of college. And I'd experienced a great deal of weight gain when I was in college. So when I was a senior, I started, I found this thing called a gym they had on campus. I didn't even know it existed. I started going to the gym, and I fell off an exercise machine, and I had a small injury. I laugh and I say I got a sports injury, but I just fell off of a machine. It's not as glamorous as a sports injury. And I started taking pain medication when I was about 22 years old. And that's where it started, a legitimate prescription in a doctor's office for a minor injury that I really didn't need pain medication for. And that's where it started. I started taking pain medication. Teaching didn't work out for me. I wasn't a really good school teacher. It was not a great time in my life. I was married really young and in college. Like I said, I'm from a small town, so you're raised, you know, guys get married to girls. So that's what I did. And I really wasn't comfortable with myself. I got married. I experienced a lot of weight gain. The year I graduated college, I experienced a lot of changes, a lot of weight loss, a divorce with my ex-wife, coming to terms with who I was as a person in parts of my life. And so that pain medication, those opiates, that false sense of euphoria filled my life, those gaps and that emotional need to be happy. And it spiraled out of control. I moved back to the triangle where I'm from, the triad, sorry. Around Greensboro, I got a job at American Express, and my addiction just, you know, started getting heavier and heavier. I graduated from lightweight pain medication to oxycodone, and I ended up losing my job at American Express because they closed the call center. So I have been taking pain medication for a good 8 years now, and I lost my job, my health insurance, and now I'm stuck with this addiction. And to be honest with you, I started forging fake prescriptions. I got on my laptop and I created those in Microsoft Publisher, ordered prescription paper off of eBay. I went from graduating magna cum laude from UNCW and being a public school teacher to now finding myself in pharmacies with fake prescriptions, doing some pretty risky things to feed my addiction. And it wasn't too long before I was caught by the authorities. I spent some time in jail. I also did some time in prison for those charges. I spent 1.5 years in prison for 87 felony counts of obtaining a controlled substance by fraud or forgery. My family has no history of criminal activity or drug addiction. This was all me, and all started from a legitimate prescription in a doctor's office. And I do share my story sometimes, but I really don't focus on the negative, and I don't focus on what I did while I was in active addiction. I really do focus more on my new life and what TROSA has done for me. You know, before I came to TROSA, there was one decision I had to make. Was I going to live or was I going to die? And I chose life, and I chose to come to TROSA and see what they could do for me to help myself. I have not looked back, and I wouldn't trade my life now for anything. I've learned so much about myself at TROSA. I have, I graduated elementary school, high school, I've graduated college, but this past summer when I graduated TROSA, that was the most meaningful graduation I've ever experienced in my life. And it was virtual because of the pandemic, and our families weren't able to join us and celebrate our success, but the staff were, and our brothers and sisters in recovery here in the community, and Janice, she came by and congratulated me. This was a monumental year for me completing this program. when I came into TROSA, I didn't know how to help myself. We have an each one teach one philosophy here. So one person helps another person, and then they end up helping themselves. You come to TROSA with different skill sets. Some people don't have a skill set, but you learn so much at TROSA. I came to TROSA with kind of like a professional background. So I came to our in-kind department. I didn't really have a lot of sales background, but I learned sales techniques, and I learned how to call companies and talk about TROSA over the phone, get them on board, and solicit product donations. My categories that I work on are a little bit different in the in-kind office. I'm more of a services kind of guy. I have learned all about the mouth and teeth and how to treat the dental needs of the residents at TROSA, how to communicate with practice administrators and office managers at dental offices. So I'm not only learning about teeth, I'm learning how to communicate with professional offices, coordinate care with our medical department, call the dentist, say, hey, we have this resident and they have a cavity on the lingual side of tooth number 16. Can you help us? I think a composite filling might be all that it needs.
Right.
Or calling an endodontist and getting root canal treatment and coordinating care with the regular dentist for a crown. And all this is donated. I call dentists and tell them about TROSA and try to get them on board. And that's one part of my job. The other part of my job is I do special events and activities for the residents of TROSA. So we're not having much popping these days because of COVID and the limitations on social gatherings. But I call companies like Live Nation and theater companies, ballet, symphony, opera, laser tag, Pizza Hut, Chick-fil-A. I call companies and I solicit tickets and meal vouchers for the residents in our program. I try to teach them how to have fun and recovery without the use of substance. And I absolutely love my job. To see people who have never been able to experience a live theatrical production go to the DPAC and see a world-class Broadway show for the very first time and see how excited they are when they come back from seeing the Donna Summer musical. I mean, it's just an amazing program. It's full circle care. You come in with a past, you leave with a new life and a future. And, TROSA just means so much to me. It really does.
But I also want to Joey also manages 6 other residents in our in-kind department. And this in-kind department is able to pull in over $6 million a year of operating expenses. So they're able to bring in everything from dental care to shoelaces to toothpaste to clothing to whatever we need. So this is an invaluable service that they provide, and incredibly, incredibly difficult. So they do some amazing work.
Well, that's amazing. Joey, thank you so much for sharing that. You shared it so eloquently, and but I also want to point out that it takes incredible bravery to be that vulnerable in telling your story and sharing that much detail. And so I really want to thank you for that. The other thing I want to point out to people who are on this call who might not be aware is I don't know much about substance use and addiction. What I do know is that addiction to prescription pain pills can look very different than addiction to other substances. It is something that is prescribed by the doctors that you're told is perfectly fine, is healthy, and they're also extremely powerfully addictive substances. Somebody who does not have a history of drug abuse in their family or a history of addiction can easily fall into the path of addiction with a simple prescribed painkiller just as easily as anybody else can. And I think there's a stigma that comes with addiction based on just lack of understanding. And so I wanted to call out that aspect, that it can happen literally to anybody.
We have people here who have been in incredibly huge, powerful jobs, very professional, with degrees upon degrees and degrees from the best families, and they are here. And we have people from every single walk of life. And so it's a beautiful community that we all are able to come together and relate to each other. But it is, thank you for mentioning that, it does happen to absolutely everybody. It doesn't happen to the people that you think that you're going to be meeting.
Yeah, and even from personal experience, I had a really terrible cough earlier this year, and I went to the doctor and he prescribed an opioid. didn't talk to me about the dangers, just said, here, this will help. I tried it once, did not help, got rid of it, just because I know just from talking to, you know, you, Janice, and to you, Joey, and from reading books and reading articles, and a past life as a journalist, just how powerful those things can be. And it's a shame that doctors are not having more conversations about this. So thank you very much. Let's move forward in the conversation just for sake of time. We're doing great. So let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. We're 6 months into self-imposed quarantines in some capacity in this region. You know, Janice, you mentioned earlier that TROSA, you know, relies a lot on those community services to help support, right, you know, the cost of the program itself, like the thrift store, the moving, the lawn care. Moving and thrift store in particular require people to be inside together. So, you know, I know that's affected you guys, and I was hoping you could talk to us a little bit about what that looked like for you guys during the pandemic and where you guys are now.
Certainly, but as well, even stepping back from our vocational services, we are a congregate living facility. So there are 500 residents who live in very close proximity here on campus. And so our biggest concern was ensuring the safety of our residents that are currently here. So we had to act very quickly to make sure that COVID did not enter our community. And 6 months in, we are still 100% COVID free on our campus. So we are very proud of that fact. I actually feel safer coming to work every single day than I would going anywhere else because of the incredible safety protocols that have been put in place here. But you're right. So what we did is before the county shut down and enforced stay-at-home orders, we started closing down our campus and closing down some of our areas, mainly to make sure that we were not allowing any of our residents to come into contact with anything. So we were in very close contact with all of the different health and safety commissions, and so we closed down our thrift store and we closed down our moving company immediately, because you're right, we did not want people coming into our thrift store or us going into people's homes for the next little while. Moving was not, it was an essential service, so technically it did not have to close, but we closed that service voluntarily because we wanted to ensure the safety. Thrift store did have to close, and we also have our other customer-facing social enterprise, our lawn care service that you can see here on the screen as our beautiful lawn care ladies who maintain a lot of our campus as well as other areas within the community. Because they didn't come into a lot of contact with customers, we were able to keep our lawn care company open. But by closing our moving and by closing our thrift stores, we closed them for almost 3 months. We lost $150,000 in program revenue every single week. So that's a huge amount of money to voluntarily step up to lose. So that was $150,000 every single week that we were not able to bring in during this pandemic. Wow. But we wanted to, again, make sure that our folks stayed safe. So we also, unfortunately, had to close our campus to family visits. So we had to increase technology and increase technology savviness amongst our residents, and more so amongst our staff. So we had to make sure that our staff were able to support our residents. So we have increased the virtual communications with our families outside of TROSA. And we have just been able to increase all of the different therapy services as well, because we're doing all of those virtually as well. So we are making sure that there are more therapy and there are more family visits for our residents at this moment in time. And TROSA is a very community-driven program. So the closeness and the connection and the accountability amongst our residents is one of the key metrics and one of the key components of our program. And having to be apart and distance from each other, that was really tough for a little while. We're still very distant, except for at this moment, but we still ensure that everybody is safe, that everybody is distanced, and we still have these very strict protocols in place.
I appreciate.
But we have been able to open up our moving at a very limited capacity, and we have opened up our thrift store also at a limited capacity. We have enacted much stricter and more stringent protocols within our moving department. So we have put more people on a move, and we have put a lot more policies in place to make it a lot safer for the customer as well as for us. At first, we were a little bit nervous, thinking that our customers were not going to want to kind of step up to these enhanced safety protocols. But actually, in fact, we are getting more phone calls because people said, we'd rather use you because you are doing a lot more safety thoughtfulness. So, but we are at about a 60% capacity for our moving at this moment in time to make sure that we stay safe.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. For anybody who's interested in lawn care removing services, where would they go to find more information?
Well, they would come to our website, trosainc.org, or give us a call at 919-419-1059, and we would be more than happy to do any free quotes and get out and help you.
Thank you for sharing that. I have some friends who've used TROSA's moving services in the last year, and they had nothing but great things to say about the experience.
That's
I've
great.
already told my
Happy to
husband
hear
I'm
that.
never moving again, but if that does ever happen, I will be.
And I just have TROSA come out and just move things from room to room sometimes. So yes, they'll do like little short-term moves as well.
Good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing we've been talking a lot about at United Way, we're in the middle of our workplace workplace giving season, where employees of different workplaces in the Triangle, they pledge to support United Way's mission to eradicate poverty and increase social mobility throughout the year. They are a huge part of why we're able to do what we're doing, why we're able to give and throughout the year to organizations like TROSA, and why we can look forward and say, okay, we know we can see the disparities that exist because of COVID-19 right now. And if these disparities have widened this much, we know it's only going to get worse before it gets better. So what we're starting to look at and plan for at United Way is not just helping the Triangle recover. And for those who aren't aware, United Way funds organizations in Wake, Durham, Orange, and Johnston counties. So the Triangle, but that's why we call it the Greater Triangle, because we have the addition of Johnston County as well. And we're starting to look at not just the recovery of these communities and helping people get back on their feet, but also stabilizing the community so that when something like this does happen in the future, because inevitably, like we saw with the Spanish flu back in the early 1900s, it will, just because that's the nature of being human and living in the world that we live in. So how do we make sure that that folks are better able to, to weather those types of circumstances moving forward? I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you envision TROSA's role being in the recovery and stabilization of our communities after the pandemic is quote unquote over.
Fingers crossed that happens soon. But one of the things that we are very proud about at TROSA is our ability to help people with that social mobility. So to be able to increase their social standing. So a lot of folks do come into TROSA and they have never had a consistent job. Most of them have never graduated from high school. And so we ensure that when they are here at TROSA, we have GED classes so that if you don't have your GED, by the time you leave, you can accomplish and have your GED. We have college courses. They can take classes at Durham Tech, all for free, so that you can increase your social mobility. And so this is one of the ways that we are being able to support the more vulnerable folks in our areas. Now, what we are also starting to see is with COVID, in many counties, we are starting to see more than a 200% increase in emergency room visits and visits for overdoses. So this is terrible because all of the social structures and the social fabric that are in our country at this moment in time are kind of starting to dissolve because of this pandemic. So a lot of these social structures aren't there. So we want to make sure that we are there because Substance use disorder is being exacerbated at this moment because of the pandemic, because routines are breaking down, and because of isolation. So we are seeing an incredible increase. Also, at the same time that we were had to close our moving and our thrift stores, we also closed our intake. So we were no longer taking in new residents, again, to maintain the safety here. But over the past couple of months, we have been able to reopen our doors, again, at a much decreased rate. But we do have a very great, and it's working, protocol to be able to start bringing folks back in. So people have to come and they will isolate and quarantine for a couple weeks off campus. They don't have any contact with anyone from TROSA. We do feed them, we do all that sort of stuff, but it's all through doors, just to make sure that everybody stays safe. And then when we realize that there are no COVID cases, the non-COVID folks are able to come through our doors. So we are starting to work much harder to be able to bring people in. Another thing that we're very much seeing, again, with these vulnerable groups, women are 36% more likely than men to suffer from substance use disorders. So right at this very minute, we are building a new women's campus across the road from us. We do have a women's campus as it is, but we are expanding it right now so that we can accommodate more women within our program. So that is one of the ways that we are starting to gear up so that we can help with this crisis. Another thing that we're very excited about is we are starting a satellite campus in Winston-Salem. We do accept folks from all over the country, all over the North Carolina areas. We accept anyone from anywhere. So location and geography are not a factor when it comes to your acceptance here at TROSA, but we want to be able to make sure that we have a broader reach within North Carolina. So we are opening up another facility, and we hope to start construction in December. Because of the pandemic, we did have to kind of pump the brakes on those different projects because we were rerouting some of the funds for those projects to make sure that our recovery and our residents were safe. But we're starting to open up and starting to move again forward on these projects, albeit a little bit slower. So those are the ways that we are hoping to start to be able to, again, increase this social fabric and social mobility within our states.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You know, it's one thing I found interesting about the pandemic is just how quickly so many of us have really felt the depression of social isolation, of the fears, of the lack of normalcy, you know, and it hurts to know that so many people are feeling that same pain. And turning to their vices, you know, but at the same time, I think so many of us can understand the draw of that and be thankful that there are places like TROSA to help, so that it's not, you know, a dead end or a cycle, but there is another side. And I think that, you know, that gives me hope too when I think about what the future looks like for all of us, is to remember that there is another side.
There is. And of course, if you are a graduate of TROSA, even if you graduated 20 years ago, we are still there and we are still available. You can come for a meal, you can come for a therapy session, a group session, whatever you need. We are always open to our graduates.
I love that.
So part of our continuing care.
We love that.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing really well on time, so I'm gonna pause on the journey and ask you guys another question. You know, we talked earlier about the stigmas of substance use disorders and mental health disorders. What is it that the average person doesn't know that might help humanize the disorders a little bit more?
Well, it's super easy to hide, I think. What do you?
I think from my experience here at TROSA, what the average person might not know about someone that has a past addiction problem is that they're some of the most sensitive, creative, and intelligent people. Yes. If you think about, you know, we just celebrated our 25-year anniversary, Go
yes.
TROSA. But if you think about the roots of TROSA, Kevin McDonald, robbed banks,
Yes.
and was in active addiction years and years ago, decades ago. And it was from his determination, his creativity, and downright wit. And he put TROSA together, and it started in an old abandoned schoolhouse in North Durham that we leased for $1 a year from the city of Durham. It started with an old abandoned schoolhouse with a gym that was filled with water. It was his ingenuity and his creative, his creativity and his determination that started TROSA.
And they were peeling potatoes for their social enterprise.
One of their first social enterprises was peeling potatoes for a restaurant that generated funds to pay that $1 a year lease that we had to pay the city of Durham. And he was in active addiction. He was creative. He had determination. And when someone comes out of active addiction and they come into TROSA and their mind gets cleared up and they start experiencing the benefits of being in a life of recovery, those skills come out, those things that were all hidden, all that good was not, lost forever. It just went to the place where I guess where lost things go temporarily. And places like TROSA help bring those out and help these people become the people they were meant to be, pillars of the community. We have had people graduate TROSA with degrees and go to have professional jobs and then come back and give a helping hand to the residents here. And we do spotlights on TROSA graduates on Facebook, and we have guest speakers, people who have graduated and come back to the community and give those residents hope. I've experienced that myself, seeing graduates come back and share their stories. They were lost in addiction, and then they come to TROSA and they learn how to live a better life, and they taught me. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that people don't understand about people in active addiction. They're great people under all of that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And what you said too is also a great reminder that no matter what challenge somebody is experiencing and the struggles they're going through, but having that village around them to pick them up and carry them along until they're ready to stand up is so incredibly valuable, whether you're dealing with substance use disorder, struggling with mental health, whether you're just depressed because you've been at home for 6 months and you haven't talked to your friends. It's incredibly important. And I love hearing these stories. I love seeing that in action through the work that you do. So thank you guys so much for sharing that. So moving on really quickly, before we get to the Q&A, one thing that has always been a big part of United Way's workplace giving campaign season, which is a couple months long at the end of every year, are hands-on volunteering. So donors don't necessarily just want to, give money out of their paycheck to support programs and organizations like TROSA's, but they want to actually help. They want to get hands-on, they want to meet folks, they want to really play a part beyond donating. And that's been hard, obviously, this year with social distancing practices. United Way, for the safety of our partners, for the safety of our own team, made the hard decision to support workplace giving campaigns 100% virtually this year. And so as part of that, we're revisiting what volunteering looks like from a virtual perspective. So I was wondering if you have any examples of how somebody might be able to support you guys virtually right now, if that's possible. And if not, if you can talk about kind of maybe what you guys are looking at towards the future of volunteering.
Absolutely. So yes, as you said, we at this moment, our volunteer opportunities have had to pause for a little while just because of the fact we can't be bringing folks onto campus. Usually we have folks come out to our thrift store or help us with meals and such. And that's how I started with TROSA. I was a volunteer and I got sucked right in. And I would come out all the time and help with Thanksgiving, and I would do that. But the other part that I volunteered for at least 6 years, I was a GED tutor. So again, I mentioned how if you don't have your GED, we do allow you to work through the GED program, but we do offer tutors. So everybody on Wednesday and Monday evenings, it used to be, they would come together and they would get tutoring from members of the community. However, we can't do this at the moment, but we are working to figure out how we can start to do GED tutoring virtually. So that will be coming up soon. Other ways that we could love to have some volunteering is just helping us with your networks, to help us with our in-kind purchases, to help us with our dental, medical, and mental needs, really, for the next little while. But once we are able to open up our campus again, we'll be able to start volunteering regularly. Is there anything that we really need for in our in-kind department?
Well, COVID has definitely changed so much around the world, actually, and especially here at TROSA, when a good part of our budget is heavily relied upon in-kind product donations. And the COVID has created so many challenges from my office and where I sit and the residents that are working in-kind. Imagine residents that are trying to reach out to chief marketing directors for companies when they're working virtually. They're at home, they're not answering their office phones. They don't have the capacity to know what they have in their warehouse. And we need deodorant, or we need toothpaste or toothbrushes. So COVID has definitely created a lot of challenges, but we have a great group of residents in our in-kind department that are going nonstop trying to still reach out. And companies, even through these struggles, have been very supportive of TROSA. But if you can think of when you woke up this morning and you went and took a shower and you brushed your teeth and you put on your deodorant and your hair product and then you put on your socks and your shoes, everything that you could think of that you used, the residents use at TROSA, and we try to get those products donated.
Right.
So,
but I want you to take a peek at what is on our screen and what were you doing this morning trying to get donations for?
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, kind of have a multifaceted job. I take care of the dental needs for the residents, but I'm also that special events guy. My nickname on campus is Tickets and Teeth. I'll help get your teeth fixed, and I also get tickets for events. So I reach out to local restaurants and I get meal cards and vouchers donated. And I start about this time of year. We have last year we had 9 tree lots in the area. We've had to cut down because of COVID. So we're going to have 6 in the Durham area. So what I try to do is I get donated meal cards and vouchers from restaurants like McDonald's, Chick-fil-A. And so the residents that are participating in these fundraisers can have some fun, fast food during the day while they're at the tree lot. And we have a lot of companies that, business has changed a lot this year. The one thing that hasn't changed, though, people do eat, and our residents need to eat. So that's what I'm trying to do, is plan the fun food for them at the tree lots.
Right. So if you want to bake some cookies or get us some vouchers or anything to help our residents when they're working those long hours on the tree lots, that would be a really wonderful thing. And again, usually we do have some volunteers on tree lots, but we can't accept volunteers this year, but food is always welcome.
Wonderful. And Joey, if somebody, an individual or a company has access to those products or food vouchers, how do they get in touch with you to donate those?
You can give me a buzz at TROSA, or you can give me a shout through email. My email is Joseph K for kite, @trosainc.org. And you can call the TROSA main line and ask for Joey Kingston. Everybody at TROSA knows Joey because I'm the tickets and teeth guy. So they know who you're talking about.
That nickname cracks me up. And I just want to give a
Me
plug.
too. I never heard that.
I just want to give a plug to the TROSA Christmas tree lot too. For those who do celebrate, the trees are absolutely beautiful. My family purchased one last year and it was a really great experience. So definitely worthwhile to visit. They are beautiful, and it definitely makes you feel like the season.
And it's very full service, and they are beautiful trees.
They really are. So we've got a few minutes left here. About 13 minutes. If anybody has any questions, Q&A, please drop it in the chat box. We're here to hang out, answer questions. If not, we certainly won't force you guys to stay. But I can tell you guys, I have the extreme pleasure of getting to tell stories of impact at United Way every day. It is a core part of my role, and it just fills me with energy to have these conversations, to really hear why we do what we do, why, to hear how many incredible things are happening in the community. So thank you guys so much for joining and for taking time out of your day. Yeah, I know how busy you both are.
No, it's such a pleasure. And you are right. Like, TROSA is the only reason why I get out of bed every morning, because nothing inspires me and makes me happier than walking onto campus and seeing this beautiful face, but also just seeing all of the residents working together and making their lives better and saving each other's lives. So it's a beautiful place to come. So hopefully we'll open up soon so everyone else can start to experience that as well. So I see a question here about the application process. Is there a wait list? It is a great program. So the application program right now, usually in our pre-COVID days, we were getting about 60 intake calls a day. We do only have 500 beds here at TROSA. We do not have a wait list at this moment. We are now receiving about 100 calls a day, but admittedly, the TROSA program is not for everyone. So you will call in and you will talk with one of our intake specialists. And when you talk with one of our intake specialists, well, 100% of our intake specialists are prior residents or current residents. So they know what the program is all about and how tough it is and how great it is. So you were kind of screened a little bit on that beginning with that first interview to see if you are a good fit for TROSA. And then you have to show up. You have to say, I am going to commit 2 years of my life to this residential program. So I'm going to move in, I'm going to leave my family, leave whatever community you have behind and come to a new community. And that's a really tough choice. So not everybody can make that choice or that commitment. But hopefully you can. And so we work really hard and we pride ourselves that we don't have a wait list, because we are making sure that we can help everybody who needs us. And as I mentioned earlier, we are working very hard to expand our campus, our services, as well as expand our services into Winston-Salem. Does that kind of answer that question? It's not a strict yes or no intake process. There are a lot of nuances and such around it. Absolutely. But what did you feel when you came? What was the intake process for you?
Well, when I called intake, I was, you're not really given a definitive yes or no at your initial call. You go through the interview process, and one of the residents who took the interview gives that information to the staff member in charge of intake, and they review it, and then they come back and give you a yes or no. You know, we are a recovery community, and we are a work-based community, which means, you know, those social entrepreneurships that we talked about drive the revenue to keep this place open without charging anything. So you have to be able to work to some level. So we wouldn't be able to accept someone who had multiple disabilities that would cause them not to be able to be a contributing member of the community. If there's someone that has multiple dual diagnoses and with that medication isn't one that's allowed at TROSA, they might not be accepted. But we do offer full medical care once you get into the program. If something does come up, you are given top-notch medical care. We have a medical facility that was just opened a couple of years ago. We have nurse practitioners on staff every day, 5 days a week, or every weekday, excuse me. So if I woke up this morning and I didn't feel well, and I had a sore throat and just a cold symptoms. Well, right now, because I have cold symptoms, it's handled a little bit differently because of COVID. You're immediately put into quarantine until you're tested for COVID to keep the community safe. Those are the extra measures that TROSA is going through right now to keep our community safe. But pre-COVID, you would drop a med slip, or if it was considered an emergency, your crew boss or your staff member would call up to our medical department, and you would go up there and you would see a nurse practitioner, and they have the ability to prescribe you medication if you need medication. If they deem it's an emergency or we can't handle that level of care, like a broken bone or a bad sprain or something, we would send you to urgent care or the hospital. You know, even though we are a nonprofit and we do not charge our residents anything to come through the program, medical care is top notch here at TROSA.
Yes, and absolutely. And if you do have a disability, we can look towards putting you in our finance department or something, so that it isn't always a loss. So yes, so we do want to make sure that we can accept everybody who wants to be here.
Thank you for that. You know, I don't see it. I do have a question, since I don't see any others in the chat at the moment. How many other programs of that length, like the 2-year length, exist in the United States?
One. And we see on a daily basis that the longer that you are in recovery and in recovery care, the longer that you will be able to maintain your recovery. So we see that the longer that you are able to commit to being in a program, the more successful you will be. So 90% of our residents who graduate, 90% are sober a year later. So we're very proud of that stat. We do see a lot of other different recovery areas that are much shorter. And, you know, we are a society of fast, easy, and let's get it done. But for recovery and to be able to rebuild your life, it does take time. So there isn't really many other programs like us.
Yeah, and that was
especially for the
right. That was one of the things that was incredibly surprising to me, because you only hear about 30, 60, 90-day programs.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know, the stories you hear around them aren't always positive because the success rates aren't all that high. And granted, I have not done much reading into, you know, substance use programs.
Right.
I was fascinated by not just the length of the program, but the success rates. And, you know, it's incredible that you guys are able to do that without charging.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
we are very grateful to foundations like the United Way who allow us to keep it cost-free. So thank you.
Well, thank you to our donors. We are so thankful to everybody who supports United Way. We are grateful for the opportunity to get to work with you guys, to get to fund the incredible work that you guys do. I just want to thank you guys both so much again. It was a pleasure to meet you, Joey. It was a pleasure to see you, Janice. Please do.
Good to see you too again. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Have a good rest of your day.